All right. Hello, and welcome to week 14. Excuse my cough drops clicking around in my teeth while I give this lecture. But we got our final next week, so make sure you check out the study guide for the final. It lists all of the main topics that are going to be on the exam. So just make sure you're familiar with all of those topics. Again, it's multiple choice with a couple short answer, a few bonus, and it's only worth 15% of your overall grade. But this week we're going to be talking about careers in audio, all the different career paths that you can take, and some of the courses that we have in our ATEC program that will help put you on the right path to whatever career choice you end up on. And hopefully, the lab that we're doing this week with interviewing someone in the field of audio will help you get comfortable talking to people in the audio field and just as a working professional, because I know a lot of you are in different majors than ATEC, but getting out talking to other professionals, pretty much what we have things like LinkedIn for. And school is all about networking, and in the field of audio, that is key to securing any kind of a job. So get out there, talk to people, and hopefully it sheds some kind of light on maybe something that you'd be interested in doing later on. But regardless of whether you're going to pursue audio or not, make sure you plan for your future. This is super important if you're doing any kind of freelance work. Yeah, so one of the main things is setting yourself up for retirement. So if you have a full-time gig, you'll have a 401k, some kind of retirement plan. But as a freelancer, you need to be able to set yourself up for security later on in life. The financial side of audio is something people don't really talk about in schools. So I thought we'd just briefly talk about it. These are just jumping off points to let you think ahead of if you are planning to go into any kind of freelancing. This could be engineering, managing, producing, being an agent, something where you're not full time with like a W-2 or any kind of like I-9 somewhere where you're not getting benefits and some kind of retirement. Um, with freelance, you will build a network of clientele. I have a long list of people with texts and emails I'm answering every single day, keeping things on my schedule going, as well as more consistent work like teaching and studio managing and such. So you end up with sort of a balance, but you will be paying out of pocket for healthcare. You will be finding your own kind of retirement plan. You got to manage your time off, and there's really no sick leave. And one of the biggest things is going to be income tax. There is a 15.3% income tax federally on top of other taxes that you have to pay for local and state. And so these are things that you need to take into account. I was fortunate enough to have people close to my age, but a little bit older, also working in freelance that I was friends with, that kind of hooked me up with, spreadsheets and that kind of stuff with tax brackets. So when I left school and I started freelancing as my main source of income, I did not get caught off guard when it came time for tax season. So this is something that you can plan accordingly. And again, even if you're not working in audio, but you are doing some kind of freelancing, even if it's like a side gig on top of your full-time job, when you claim income as contracted work, it will be a 1099 and you will pay the base 15.3% income tax just for federal. So one of the best things you can do, create a new savings account that is strictly just for taxes. And every time you get a paycheck in, grab 15% of that, throw it in that tax savings account, and just let that build over the year. So when tax season comes, you get your taxes back from the IRS. Boom, empty out that savings account, cut a check, send it to the IRS, and then you don't have to worry about it because you've been planning bi-weekly, monthly, pulling the money out of all the checks and invoices that you get. It's really easy to make a spreadsheet. Google Sheets is free. Just make a budget. Um, if you are working freelance, there's not always consistency. Some months you might make a really whole bunch of money. The next month you might make a little bit less, depending on how the work is scheduled. If you need to take time off for holiday or if you're sick or something. So you can just grab percentages of things and just make some kind of a budget and stick to it. Start a retirement fund as early as possible. We'll talk about a Roth IRA and other retirement funds in here on the next slide. And just general rule, like 3 months of cost in a savings account. So these are just like super generalities of just kind of like basic safety nets. Start looking at retirement funds as soon as you can because compounding interest. I think it was, the dude Warren Buffett was just like, time in the market beats timing the market. That is totally true when you are going freelance. I hate investing and money, don't know how to day trade, but I know how to just throw money into a retirement account that's going to be slow growing and safe, and it will accumulate 10% a year through my entire lifetime as I work and keep throwing money at it. So, yeah, next slide. Roth IRAs. This is a preferable account that I've been recommended to from my undergrad professors that were business and economics professors. They made it very clear, like, if you aren't like big into day trading, not super into investments and stuff, this is something super safe that you can just, spend a couple days learning about and set up yourself through anything like Charles Schwab or really any of the investment companies that offer Roth IRAs. So with the contributions, you pay taxes on the money you contribute to the Roth IRA. So you'll put the money in as you go. There's a certain cap. Right now it's like $7,500 or $8,000 a year. And you just, put in money as you want throughout the year. For each tax year, you'll pay taxes on what you put in the following year. And then everything you accrue interest-wise, you will not pay taxes on. And so once you hit certain years, you can take that money out completely penalty free, and you are just making money on all of the interest. So you pay the taxes up front instead of paying on the back end after you've accrued all that compound interest, where there are other accounts where you put the money in, it's your money, you don't pay any taxes on it, but then you pay taxes on what you pull out later with the interest included. So, on something you're going to keep in your bank account for 40, 50 years while you're working, if you're 22 and you start this account like right after school and you start your professional career, you put in money for 40, 45 years, you retire at 65, 70, whatever it is, you have decades and decades of interest that you've accrued on all that money. So, the kind of thinking is why pay taxes on all of that on the back end after you've accrued all this compound interest? Why not just pay taxes on the principal that you're putting in to grow that interest off of? And deciding those kinds of things of where you want to pay taxes on the front end or the back end really depends on how long you want to keep your money in these accounts. If you're doing retirement, obviously this money is to be touched after you retire at an older age. So it might make more sense for you to be paying taxes on the front end when you're putting the principal in instead of when you take it out. And again, these are all just guidelines. Please do your own research, figure out what's best for you, your own situation, whether you find a full-time gig in audio or some other field, or if you're working freelance in some kind of field, or if you're doing a mixture of both. It just totally depends on your situation. Cool. Yeah, and you can always convert this account to other things as well, or convert your other accounts into a Roth IRA. And there are tons of numbers you can call online that will help walk you through how to do all that. If you set up a Roth IRA account through, for example, Charles Schwab, you will be able to call and they will be able to walk you through how to like fold that money into your new accounts. Cool. And it's just a little show of how much money you can make off of very little. If you have a starting balance of $0, starting from scratch, you graduate college at 22 years old, and you are putting about $400 a month, so about $5,000 annually. If you retire at 65, you will stand to gain about $3 million by the time you reach the age of 65 to retire off of. Obviously, inflation will be about 3-4% every year, but the average expected rate of return is about 10% on something like the S&P 500, which has been super consistent over the last 200 years. So, um, you know, and we can see by the curve, you are putting little bits of money in each year as they go on. You know, 12 years later, you have a little less than $100,000 into an account. But compounding interest, once you build like enough of a base, that money keeps growing on itself and it can skyrocket towards the end. So even the difference of your last few years here between 60 and 65, we're going from 2 million to almost 3 million. And if you like to keep working and you're a workaholic like myself, maybe you retire at 70. So instead of $3 million, you are almost at 5 with just another 5 years. So this is bankrate.com. This is like a little retirement calculator that you can plug some numbers into, get an idea, and start planning for your future. It is really easy to not think about that because you are very young, but your 20s can go by pretty quick. And then you are almost 30 and you realize that you have not started on any of that. And I was fortunate enough to have people in undergrad telling me to look into retirement accounts. And I had some freelance friends that were also very interested in making sure they were set up for retirement and they could retire at some point. So make sure you take your future seriously and you start looking at financial things, because if you are freelance, no one is there to take care of you but yourself. You got to figure out your own scheduling, your own hours. You got to network for your gigs. You got to take care of your own health insurance. You got to take care of your own retirement. So it's just good to be very planned ahead. Take some afternoons if you have it free. Take some weekends. Figure this kind of stuff out. Do your own kind of research into what kind of like accounts you want to keep your money in, what kind of like healthcare, whether you want to freelance or go full time. Um, it might be good to take inventory of your goals and what kind of things would help support you in your careers. And cannot stress to you enough, retirement funds are going to be huge. Even if you are working a full time job, you can still be investing in a Roth IRA every month. $300-$400 a month. 5-10% of your monthly income can just go straight to a Roth IRA. And on top of your 401k and whatever else you have through your company that you work for or you have personally, then you can have a huge nest egg that you can, spend yourself, buy a small boat and sail around in your retirement years, whatever you want to do. But you will have set yourself up a little bit better with just small little bits of your paycheck every month going just away into an account that you do not touch until you are old. Cool. Yeah. A few drawbacks of the Roth IRA, but go look at different kinds of accounts and figure all that out for yourself. Talk to other people. This is just me giving a little PSA of please look into this. Do not take anything I have on these slides as, gospel, but do your own research, figure out what is best for you, because this stuff is very important to everyone. Cool. So, money aside, let's talk about some careers in audio. So, a really big one is film, movies, documentary. We looked at some of this stuff when we were talking about ADR and looking at like the Doc Kane stuff that he was doing in the studio. So, on a film set, you're doing live sets, you're doing documentaries, whatever it is, you will have a boom operator. And this is the person who is going to be holding that big stick with the little boom microphone on the end, capturing the audio. It's going to be a shotgun mic, so it's going to be super directional, which means they can be a little bit farther away, and they just have to point it directly at the source that they want. And so they're able to get a lot of rejection from everything going on around them and just picking up the people speaking or whatever that source is. And This is going to be mostly used for recording dialogue. So then you have a field recording mixer. So they're going to work on the production for capturing all the dialogue, and they're going to give rough mix for picture edits. They will be live on set, and then they will also be doing some editing in post to give quick edits to picture, because they need like a rough scape of what's going on, especially if we need to go do ADR, or we need to just get an idea of what the next steps are and what where they are at with just the raw recordings of what they got on set. Then you will have a music supervisor. This is the person who oversees all the music that takes place in the motion picture. They will work closely with the composer. The composer is going to create the score for a motion picture, so they're going to be writing and recording new music. They might be working with musicians they hire to come into a studio, and there will be an audio engineer to record all of that. All of the tracks for the musicians and the composer, but the composer is going to be writing and creating, whereas the music supervisor is going to be overseeing that. They're going to be working with the composer. They're also going to be working with, you know, any kind of like people in law, talking like rights to using like release music as part of the soundtrack, the placements of the songs, what kind of like vibes they're trying to create. And then after that, we move to the sound designer, which is going to be um, people working with Foley artists, people pulling from sound libraries and creating the entire soundscape of the film. So anytime you have a hard sound effect of something happening on screen, people, footsteps, like a gun or an explosion, anything that you are going to see or infer that happens off screen, you are going to need sounds for that to make the visuals make sense auditorily. And you also need to create the environment. So we're talking ambience. So this could be, you're out in the forest and you hear like wind and tree rustling and birds and maybe some kind of animal in the background, or the thunderstorm sounds if there's a little bit of rain or something. You just kind of bring that environment in, choosing what kind of reverbs are being applied to all the sound effects to place that into a space. If you're in a really big hall, it's going to be a really big hall-like reverb with a long decay. If you are in a car, it's going to be a very short reverb decay time. Basically no pre-delay, because all of the walls are really close to you and all of the boundaries. So those are all things you have to consider when you're sound designing, making a lot of decisions just to make all of the auditory stuff make sense to what is happening visually. And the re-recording mixer. This is going to provide final theatrical sound mix for a cinematic production. So once all the music has been chosen, it's been written, it's been brought in, everything's been sound designed, you have a re-recording mixer who then has all those tracks. They do a final mix down to make sure everything is at the right levels. Everything makes sense, meshes together, scene to scene. Everything has the right kind of tonalities. Nothing is offensive, nothing is too loud. And this job is sometimes the most noticeable when you have super loud fight scenes and then all of a sudden you move to a quieter place with dialogue and you cannot hear what they're saying and the movie is unwatchable without subtitles. Sometimes that is intentional. That can be used for some kind of dramatic effect. That drives me crazy, but it's a choice. And these are the choices that the re-recording mixer is making. And they will do it in their studio, and then they will probably go into a theater and listen to what this sounds like in a real theatrical space. And similar to how you would listen to like a mix of a song that you did in your car and on a speaker and on your phone, and then you go back into the studio and you take those things in consideration, all the notes you wrote in your phone, and you make mix edits to make sure that translates to different places. So the re-recording mixer will be doing that as well. And we have our ADR mixer. We looked at this last week. We were correcting dialogue and sound that was problematic in the original production. If there's noises or like slurred words or anything like that, or there's a problem with the boom mic, it wasn't pointed correctly. If there's just too much environment noise, then we can go into the studio overdub that. Usually we'll throw up the same microphone that was used to capture the original audio. Then it can go pretty seamless once you add some ambience and environment noise behind it, little EQ, anything that the room is doing that the free field or the room that it was recorded in is not. Foley artists. These are working with the sound designers, especially in any kind of engineerings or audio engineering, like recorders. And these are the people that are going to be performing custom sound effects. So they're going to have a full library that I'm sure if you watched the video that was in the slides from last week that I didn't make you watch in class, they just have shelves of random stuff, pots, pans, all different kinds of shoes, like buckets of different material like dirt and gravel and sand, and maybe they like make ice in the fridge and then they dump it out everywhere and they crush it down and then stomp on it in like big boots to if they need like boots on snow kind of sounds. And they got all different kinds of like belts and stuff if they need to do different kind of leather sounds if someone's in like a leather vest or jacket and they're moving around, and you'll be able to hear that leather like crinkling against itself. And so instead of like using a leather like jacket, anything that's leather, they can just maneuver like a couple like leather belts around in certain different ways to create different leathery sounds for different things on screen that are leather. Um, so that's a whole art form in itself, and your Foley engineer, and this is going to be the person that records the Foley artist performing. They will do this to picture. They will have a mic in a little studio space, and they will perform. The Foley engineer will get levels, make sure it cuts properly to the picture. It's another set of ears, another set of eyes, and then they're controlling Pro Tools or whatever kind of DAW that they're recording and editing in. TV news and radio. This is um, this is a little bit of a turn. This is much more live. Uh, Film, movie, and documentary is going to be live setting while you're doing the initial shoot, and then there's a ton of stuff in post that you are doing, things like ADR, Foley, all of the music and sound design. So pretty much just the dialogue is going to be the main focus for the live portion of working with film and documentary. Whereas TV news and radio, this is pretty much all going to be live. So you really get like one shot at doing this. And um, each of these fields, like small like portions and like areas of audio are going to be high pressure in a lot of different times, but generally like TV news and radio tend to be a little bit more high pressure just because there is less room for error. You might have like a 5 to 10 second delay to help them catch things. But whereas you can do ADR if you mess up the dialogue, or you can shoot multiple times doing a scene with TV, news, radio, this is probably just live. So audio technicians A1 and A2, these are the people that are going to control the boards they're going to be the audio operators, and this is both for live and tape network productions. And so tape network productions are taped ahead of time and then aired later. This is a situation in which you will have a little bit more wiggle room to make edits. You can cut to different camera angles and kind of splice performances together, depending on what it is. But a lot of times you are just going to be live on TV. And your studio technicians. So these are the people that are going to be doing a lot of grunt work, as well as a lot of like very specific jobs. This could be cameras, audio, your visuals, all the graphics and lighting. And this is both for production and the transmission of the signals. And there's going to be a lot more technicians than there are A1s and A2s. And these are kind of the backbone of making live shows happen. So on top of all the people that capture the footage and the audio and do all the lighting and graphics and visuals, as well as the people who control their boards, you also have music coordinators. So if you're on radio, you might be taking daily air requests from people calling in, different artists, different guests. You will also act as a studio producer. And this also kind of goes hand in hand with the artist station liaison. You're just going to be kind of representing people. So I work with producers, and as an engineer, in music, I also take on a lot of different roles, especially working with small artists and local artists. I will have to take on roles as producers and directors, and I will have to do a lot of networking for them if they need to find musicians or find venues, anything like that. I'm constantly hooking people up with other people that I know. And as a producer or a liaison, you're kind of representing the artist or station that you're working with and being kind of like a middle talking person to a lot of people. So, if your artist is like, I need this, or I need to talk to this person, or this needs to get done, but they need to go off and, practice or perform. Like it's your job to go make that connection or go get that thing done. And this might involve scheduling. You also might be conducting guest interviews. So if you're working for a station and they are bringing in these guests, they might need you to write up questions and conduct an interview with that person. And then we have our AV technicians. So AV technicians are not limited to TV news and radio, just as A1 and A2s are not limited. Really, any of these positions. These titles go across most fields in audio. But you might have to do meeting and event support, equipment setup and teardown, virtual events technician. So essentially, you are going to be working with digital networking. If there's Zoom calls, if there are like projectors, TVs, anything with a feed, it could be like any kind of Dante or Cisco networking. You might have to get some certifications to learn the networking platform that this corporation is running or university is running. I have a lot of friends that work in audio that either did their time 5, 10 years in AV until they moved on to something else, or people that are currently working that have moved out of freelancing into a full-time AV position and they love it. Usually, you do have to be moving and tearing down equipment. You might be crawling around underneath things, chasing cables. You're troubleshooting things all the time, and you need to be pretty well versed in all the equipment that you're working with. A lot of networking stuff, a lot of meetings. This is huge in corporate. You could work downtown in DC at probably any building. I'm sure every single building in DC that hosts some kind of company or any kind of politician or congressional thing, they're going to need AV technicians. I know people that work at the Capitol as AV technicians. They have dedicated audio gear that does not leave the building. They go through Secret Service security every time they enter the building, and they do all the events, whether it's Jimmy Carter's funeral or just meet the press or anything like that. Whatever they're doing at the White House or the Capitol building, there are lots of AV technicians needed in DC for politics, corporate, whatever. Production assistants. So this is going to be very much an assistant. You're going to do things like inventory. You're going to operate some equipment when needed. This is kind of like an A2, whereas an A1 does the main job and the A2 is there to support or fill in if the A1 is like sick or on vacation or something. Production assistant is really going to be there to just assist. They might manage like online accounts, and they might be doing communication with clients. And you will see this word come up a lot: communication, liaison, things like that. This is just something that you need to be able to do if you're going to work in audio. And again, if you're not working in audio, and you want to, if you are just taking this as an elective, this is just huge in really any field. The better you can communicate with people and the better hang you are, the more likely you are to be hired and kept around. You need to be able to effectively communicate what you are thinking or what you need, or pull out from your clients what they need, and just have very clear, easy communication, because the easier you are to work with, the more people want to work with you. And that goes through anything that you are doing. Yes, and then producer. So this is a job title that has taken on a new role in the last 20, 30 years. In Traditionally, These are what the producer does in like TV news and radio. Producer is probably most known in music as like, oh, I make beats, or I'm producing this artist. We'll take a look at that in the next slide. But for TV news and radio, this is someone who, records and produces and edits a lot of the stuff. You're going to be giving creative guidelines to guests that are on air. You're going to pitch show ideas. You're going to, again, be a liaison to the people you're working with. You are going to be scheduling. You're going to be doing all of these things. And this this title is pretty broad. You might have more than one producer on a show, or working with a specific artist, or in some kind of like TV station, and you might be doing different roles. Like these might be chopped up. Like one person might be like the show person, and another might be doing a lot of producing and editing and like mixing with the equipment, and in post to give people better ideas of demos and different ideas and what things might look like once you're on the air. Uh, cool. And then studio work. So this is something I have the most experience in out of all of this. I have done a little bit of live for like TV and stuff. I've done two documentaries. I have I know plenty of people that are heavily involved in film and movies. For the film and movies, we've got a Foley class. We have there is musical composition classes that you can take outside of the ATEC program. Um, we do have like a doc sound class where you will be doing boom operating, and you will be a part of documentaries. You will be doing some field recording mixing. You will be potentially a music supervisor or working with someone to choose the music. Um, when I did a student film, I had to also compose on top of all the other stuff. I was also doing ADR. I also did Foley. I was also engineering everything myself because there was no budget because it was a student film. I also did all of the sound design. And so it is, we have like several classes in the doc film um, realm that you will do all of this at some point. And you will be able to show yourself in a portfolio that says, hey, I can do anything that you need me to. Uh, and all of this stuff is very time consuming. When it comes to a documentary or a film, usually there are a lot of people doing each of these jobs, and they are all working together with you know hundreds of other people in the credits that you'll see at the ends of every movie and film. We have live sound classes. Um, we have one for sure. I believe we might be doing a second iteration of our live sound class that is more advanced. You'll learn about basic networking and working live consoles, doing front of house, doing monitors, and there are lots of people with connections to radio stations around here. We have lots of alumni working at NPR, and there's another radio station in the area that someone works at. I know people that work at iHeartRadio and such things, doing like producing, and there are tons of jobs like that in DC, as well as other major cities that through the AU alumni network that you are now a part of, you will be able to call upon and try to, get a better chance at interviews for different jobs. But back to studio work. So, one of my main gigs is a recording engineer, and this is going to be a nice blend of technical knowledge and artistic choices. So, it's very much of knowing all the frequency responses to the mics, how all of the gear works, all of the parameters of your tools that you're using, whether it's a compressor or a reverb or a delay or an EQ. You're just going to need like inside and out knowledge of each piece of gear that you use, how they react, because every model is slightly different. Even if they are both compressors, if they're different brands, different eras, different models, they're going to be uh, they will sound different and act different, and you just need that ahead knowledge. So when you make decisions, you know how roughly how it's going to sound afterwards with the choices that you make. And so that's kind of where the technical knowledge comes in. You need to understand, signal flow, how all of the gear works and is routed together. And then you have artistic choices where someone comes in with an idea or a vibe, and you need to just be able to make decisions to try to get what's in their head or in their vision to come out of the speakers. And they might give you um, lots of leeway and creative freedom to make some of your own choices, which is when this job becomes extremely fun because you can be really creative while falling back on your technical knowledge that you learn here in school. So we have production classes and we have mixing classes. We have courses on Ableton, and we have DAW classes where you will learn Pro Tools, you will learn Ableton, which will prepare you for our studio courses, where you will learn how to use the consoles, the patch bay, all of our outboard gear, working with musicians because we bring in bands. You will learn all the different kinds of microphones we have in the closet. We have all of the industry standards, plus a few creative ones. And we have two different kinds of consoles. We have several different rooms. You will get a chance to listen in different rooms, different kinds of speakers, and you will have a foundation in like the main industry standard DAWs like Pro Tools to be able to multi-track record bands. And we have two iterations of our studio courses. The first studio course is going to be a big crash course on all of the equipment and the basics of running a session. And then our second iteration, SSD2, is going to be mostly working with outside bands. It will be a lot of session work. Students work together as a team to set everything up and then run Pro Tools, communicate with the bands, and run the session from beginning to end. With the professor really just being there to guide. And a producer. So this is where this has taken on a very new meaning. Traditionally, producers manage commercially recorded music. This is going to be a person that sits next to the engineer and they are paid for their opinion. You can think about Rick Rubin. I cannot stand that man, but he made an excellent career as a producer where people value his opinion very, very highly. And so they pay him a lot of money just to come and hang out and give his opinion. He will listen to what comes through the speakers. He has been very adamant about not knowing anything about music theory or how the equipment works, but he has, as he claims, very good opinions, and that's what people pay him for. So he'll come, be a total weirdo freak in the corner, meditating and like doing whatever it is that he does that people have described. But then he will voice his opinion when he hears what comes through the speaker, and yeah, you're just working with the artists, you're working with the engineers, and you're just ensuring that the project runs smoothly from start to finish. If something needs to change, something tonally, something performance-wise, you might be helping to write the music in the studio, working with the artists. You might be working with the artists outside of the studio. And it's really just someone overseeing the project, giving their input, and trying to work with the bands to make the most like commercial level product that you can. So then the mix engineer, as an engineer, you need to be able to do all of this stuff. But a lot of times I might be sending my recordings out to a different mix engineer that someone has. And so I can just package up all my files in a zip file, send it over WeTransfer or Dropbox or email or whatever it is. They can just download them there and then they can mix everything down. So you are going to be combining all of the different audio elements into one cohesive final version. So as a recording engineer, you record everything multi-track. You will have 10 to 16 to 20 mics on just a drum kit alone, and then the mix engineer will take all of those signals, all 16 drum mics that each have their own individual track, and he will mix them down to a drum mix. And then that person will take the bass tracks where you might have two or three bass tracks and 20 guitar tracks and a lead vocal track with 45 harmony tracks underneath it, and you are mixing all of that in together using all different kinds of processing, from the basics like EQ and compression to all different kinds of saturations, distortions, using reverbs and delays to create a sense of space and like vibe. And you'll be doing like lots of mix processing to glue everything together, give something an overall tonality. And you'll be doing all different kinds of techniques depending on what the song calls for. And once you have that finished and you have a single stereo file that you can hand your client to listen to, and they listen to it in the car, they go home, they listen to it on their speakers at home, and they call you or email you or come back and they're like, yep, that is it. This is the bomb. This is finished. The mix engineer will then send it on to the mastering engineer. And the mastering engineer is just preparing this for release. So this is the final step. This is making sure that spectrally the balance of everything is like okay. You don't have way too much bass. You don't have like way too much high end. You're not like missing any of the middle or anything that is hurting the project as a whole. And they're going to just prepare for release. There are loudness standards for streaming platforms, for like vinyl records. Things can only be so loud, or else you're going to cut too big of a groove and you're going to overlap some of the grooves in the record. You are going to um, not really have a loudness for um, things like CD, but they will also manage the dynamic range and prepare everything to the correct loudnesses, to the correct file formats with sample rate and bit depth. And they will do things called dithering, which is reducing the noise when they downsample, because you will be raising the noise floor. You can offset that by adding randomized noise. And if you are going to release something on vinyl, they will have to filter it properly because you can't have too much low end. So you're gonna have to reduce some of the low end so there's not too big of grooves and like being cut into the vinyl, which the record player will then add back later. So there's depending on the format and the medium of release, the mastering engineer has to do different things. And finally, the studio manager. So every good studio will have a studio manager. This is the person responsible for making sure that the recording studio makes money. They will be scheduling things. They will be, finding people to repair equipment. They will be hiring people. They will be doing the budget. And they are, just there every day in an office, doing all of the paperwork, all of the taxes, all of the business end, all the hiring ends. They will probably also be HR. If someone has an issue with a client, they will be going to the studio manager, and the studio manager will then handle it. They will be sending out the invoices. They will be making sure all of the accounts are payable. Um, and this is basically the heart and soul of your studio. Without a good studio manager, you will not be making money and you will not be getting people in the door. Um, because nowadays you need to market everywhere. You know, things have moved away from billboards and flyers and handing out business cards in clubs. It's more of an online presence. So the studio manager will probably also hire PR people, or they will do it themselves, where they will be having an Instagram page and a website, and they will be posting things, and they will be, creating hashtags or doing whatever, doing collabs with their artists that come in. Anything to say, hey, we're a studio, please come. And then it is the work that all of the engineers do that keep people coming back once they're in the door. Cool. And then music business. If you're a business major and you really like music, this is a great avenue to go. We have music business courses here. They are offered every other semester, I believe. And cannot recommend them enough if this is the kind of route you are going. And there are all different things that you can do in the music business world. Artists and repertoire, A&R. You may have seen this before. This is basically managing, representing, directing. So you are going to be a liaison. You are going to be kind of like an agent. You are going to be managing your client. And you might have multiple clients. Or you might work for a record company as A&R, doing all of this for all of the artists on the label. Your artist manager. This is for a very big artist, you will have a dedicated artist manager, and this is the person that just takes care of things. They're just making a lot of decisions on the artist's behalf that the artist does not have time for. And your business company manager, this is going to be working at the company or the label itself, Whether you're working for Sony or you're working for, Death Row Records, you will be in the business end managing people underneath you in the company itself. Promoting is very big. This is a grind and a half. I know plenty of people that have done their share of promoting, and you are just going out, you know, putting your feet to the pavement, handing out flyers, talking to people, hitting people up online. Huge thing for promoters now is just, reaching out on Instagram, on TikTok, things like that, making connections, getting people to repost your stuff, just getting the word out for any shows or your word out for your artists. Marketing, again, this kind of goes hand in hand. You're just putting your name out there, running ad campaigns, just making sure if you have a show that is being marketed correctly to the right audience. I am not an ad person or a marketing person, but this is something that is huge in music. This is how you get people to listen to you. There are so many pop people that just have a great marketing and they get lots of plays and lots of attention, even if the music is not quite as good as what you would think it would be based on their listener counts. Cool. We've talked briefly about an agent. Musical voiceover director. So is this is a job that I did not know existed until I got into the audiobook world, and they make stupid money. You can charge like $30 per 1,000 words, and I have done books where it has been 180,000 words, and we crushed that in like 6 days. So, um, but what you need is good communication skills. You need to be a very well-read person because, for example, as an audiobook director, you will be getting the script ahead of time. The script is just literally going to be the book. And you need to read the entire book ahead of time. You need to flag every single word that the artist might not be sure about, things that may have a pronunciation error as you come to them. Because when the author or artist is reading, if they come to a word that they're not sure about, you can't waste time of like, oh, let me go look that up real quick and then spend 3 or 4 minutes looking for that every single time that comes up. You need to have that like on hand. And so the director will just have a full list of stuff with links on a second screen that goes straight to Youglish or Merriam-Webster that they can just pull up and play the audio from like an example of someone saying someone's name. The names of places and people are one of the biggest ones. So if you have a lot of names of places and people in your book, pretty much every single one of those is going to get flagged just in case, because you know, just the other day there was a name Tania, and that can be pronounced several different ways. It could be Tanya, it could be Tania, it could be Tania, or Tania, which is different from Tania. And so, there are like 4 different ways someone could say that name, depending on where you're from, like what parts of the country, what parts of the world. And so the director will need to flag that, figure out where that person's from, or find online clips of how that person's name is said. And you might have to just take that line like 4 different times with all the different pronunciations, but the director needs to know which pronunciations need to be hit. So the editors have it. So when it moves to the next step and they know for certain, they'll have to bring that artist back in to read one line as like a pickup. And uh, yeah, you need to have good communication skills, be well read. You need to just know a lot of things, and that is basically your job. You're just directing them through the book and making sure that the artist is comfortable, they take enough breaks, things like that. Moving to our project supervisor, this could be a number of things, but basically, this is just a management role. This is a supervisory role. So, if you have experience working like managing people, supervising entire projects in one field, this isn't going to be the worst thing to then switch over to as a music business person. You can also just work your way up to this position. A publicist and a journalist. So this is more in music writing. You might be working for a magazine, blogs, online. This we've moved away from print media uh, in the last 20, 30 years, which is unfortunate because magazines are sick. But these kind of jobs still do exist. There's tons of online media that need publicists and journalists, and they've just taken on slightly different meanings. Social media managers. So this is a super lucrative job, and this is something that you can do freelance very easily on top of other stuff. I know people who manage social media for artists and companies, different studios or different labels, things like that. This is an entire job itself. You are making short form content. You are making sure people's online presence is good, you know, making sure people post enough, stay relevant enough, also post correct things, make sure they don't do anything crazy that ruins their image. And yeah, you're just, grinding content and you are, just making sure people stay relevant or reach out to a wider community. And yeah, you just spend your day online working. But tour manager. So this is probably one of the biggest undertakings for a manager. You are scheduling, transportation, food, places to stay, the venues, and you are also managing the artists, making sure they're getting from point A to point B on time every time, making sure they are not late to their shows. And this is probably one of the more stressful jobs on this list, especially if you are working with people that you don't know personally and are difficult to work with. And finally, the venue manager. So you're just managing the entire venue. There will be managerial positions below you as well. You could be a stage manager, which is a really big one. Which a stage manager is just literally telling people what to do and where to be, marking the stage with like gaff tape or stripe tape, and just making sure everyone has their spot and everyone knows their cues and making sure everything runs smoothly. It could be if you're working in theater and things are not getting ironed fast enough and you are 5 minutes to curtain and there's a shirt that's still wet. As a stage manager, you got to go back there, just iron that shit yourself, get it done and make sure the show runs. Make sure everyone has their jobs done and is doing what they need to on time. And that's essentially what the venue manager is doing on a much wider scale for the entire venue. You are just making sure everyone's job is getting done, and you again need good communication skills, need good managerial skills, and just making sure everyone does their job. And entertainment law. So, if you are interested in law, which I know a few of you are, um, these are very specialized things. These are going to be contract management, copyright claims, trademarks, and artist representation. These are have always been important, but it's getting more and more dicey as we enter further into the age of AI, where copyright claims are very much in a gray area when it comes to AI. This is probably going to make people a ton of money in the next 10 years, as there are going to be a lot of things that come through the courts where artists finally get the rights to their music that are being, used for artificial intelligence and learning, like machine learning. Um, so, this would probably be a good one to get into if you are interested in law and music. Artists always need representation. People are always getting sued. Ed Sheeran is not allowed to own a chord progression, but he will try. And everyone else who maybe he has to come after, or Taylor Swift has come after, or Juicy J has had to defend, or has gone after for, rappers that have come after him and used a similar melody line. These are things that need a lawyer. You will be caught up in court and you will throw musical jargon at a jury of people that don't know what a time signature is, but will believe you because it sounds fancy and smart. You might be able to trick them into winning the case, which has unfortunately happened. But yeah, you're going to be working with artists, managers, labels, distributors, venues. You're going to be working with everyone when you're working in entertainment law. So if you're into law and into music, this is very much more of a black and white, dry kind of thing. But um, there's I'm sure is still fun and like creative in some way. hopefully, because you're still working in music. But I don't know. I don't really know any entertainment law people, but you know, there is a lot of work in this if this is something you're interested in. For your lab, if you are interested in this, I'd reach out to like a law office or anyone at the in the law school, perhaps on the other side of campus. Maybe someone could shed some more light on this if this is a route you want to take. But yeah. So, what do you want to do? These are big questions that no one has to have. I still don't know what I want to do when I grow up. I'm just uh, I'll always be figuring that one out. My dad still tells me the same thing. He's like 65. He still doesn't know what he wants to do when he grows up. But yeah, if you're not sure, try out as many things as you can. If you are interested in audio, do internships. Reach out to people. Take all the different kinds of classes in this program. Do as much as you can. Um, while you are a student, do free labor because once you graduate, you can no longer do free labor, really, because you'll have bills to pay. So, and you have bills to pay now while you are a student, I'm sure. I had to work like 3 jobs plus an internship while I went through my master's. But do as much as you can in the field of audio to get as much experience, widen your horizons, just keep as many doors open for you as possible because there's a lot of crossover. You can go from doing studio work to then doing live sound to then doing TV and radio and then doing corporate AV stuff. I have done freelance gigs in pretty much every area except for entertainment law that we have talked about today. And there's money to be made in all of these things. There's a ton of crossover. You just need to know the right people, have a basic fundamental understanding and a good work ethic and good communication skills, and you will be able to move between these things and figure out what you might want to do like full time or as a career and find your niche in audio. Because audio is already kind of niche, but then there are so many more specific things. Like there are not very many mastering engineers in comparison to mix engineers, but there is like a demand. Every project needs mastered. Um, cool. And just talk to everyone. Talk to as many people. And even if you're not into audio, do this anyway in your own field. Talk to as many people as possible. If you're doing business, that is like one of the most broad things that there is. you know, like there are so many things you can do with a business degree. Talk to as many people as you can with a business degree or that work in the business department, um, and figure out what area of that you want to do. Like what interests you the most, like what would get you to work harder in the work that you do. And it's the same thing as audio. Network. You got to network, got to build connections. DC especially is a small town when it comes to audio. Most people know each other. There's a lot of names that come up all the time, and you will meet lots of artists who know a lot of the same people as you. You'll meet new people all the time, but all of those people have met someone else that you have probably met, and the network grows. Um, so be respectful towards everyone. Don't burn too many bridges while you're here, and if you're going somewhere else, kind of treat it the same, especially in audio. Even places like New York and LA, they're substantially bigger than DC, but um, you know, still people know each other. These fields aren't that big where you want to be like burning bridges or anything. And one connection can take you pretty far. So yeah, and keep talking to people. Any professional will be able to shine lights on really niche parts of this field that you might not be able to find a whole lot about, or you can't find anything but like a Gearspace forum, which do not read. Those people do not know what they're talking about. Um, and like once you get experience in like studios and stuff, you'll realize like, wow, you have never listened to something recorded on this mic that you're talking about. So talking to people that work those jobs that is always like the best option, and it will cold call people, like send emails to people, see if they want to chat. Even if you're not doing it for this school project, like this lab, talk to people, send an email, see if they want to talk to you. Just take 20 minutes of their time, be very grateful, thank them a bunch, and then ask a couple questions that you might need to ask to get a little bit more light shined on something. Hit someone up on LinkedIn and just shoot them a question. Be like, hey, I'm a student here studying audio. What do you think about this? Any advice on this? Maybe they answer you, maybe they don't. How do you get your start? So, no matter how good you think you might be, um, everyone starts as an intern unless you just are super lucky and you're also super talented. These are pretty rare cases. But everyone who's ever won a Grammy or an Oscar or any kind of award starts as an intern. Um, Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails grew up in my hometown. He was from like nowhere, and then he went to Cleveland, Ohio, and he like was sweeping floors at this studio and was interning and was learning the equipment, and then he was like recording his own music there at night after everyone went home, and then the rest was history. But he started out sweeping floors in the studio, just to get his foot in the door to allow him to do other things and learn how to operate the equipment, and then be able to have a key to hang out late into the night and whatnot. So, find what might be a good experience for you. Maybe you hate studio work after you've been there for a month and you realize, like, maybe a podcast is more suited for me. Maybe I want something just chill, something I can do from home, work from home, like a remote post, like editing job. Find out what you like. There are internships for pretty much everything. Um, and as you work through your degree at AU, just use the university as a jumping off point. Connect with other studios, production houses. We got lots of TV and radio stations here. There's tons of film, tons of docs that come through here. Video games too. Like go into the Bethesda and see if you can get yourself into there if you're really into games. And there's AU alumni everywhere. Like you're paying all this money to come to this school. The like once an eagle, always an eagle thing, like whatever. Use that to your advantage. Like it people I've had success with that in the past. Like I've hit people up on LinkedIn that did not graduate from the ATech program, but like just went to AU. And I was just like, hey, I also went to AU. What do you know about this company? I see you also work for it. And they like are always super helpful just because I went to AU. And they will help like pass your resumes along, get you interviews, things like that. So, don't be afraid to find other like professionals out there in your field that have gone to AU because that does mean something. It is a network that you get just for being here. Yeah, and they're beyond the DMV. If you do not plan on staying here, there are so many people that have moved to every other city and even like more remote places, more rural places. You can find people from AU all over. Reach out to them, build your connections, and it should help you find a job. And as you create relationships with your professors, they can also give you advice. When you email or them or talk to them after a class, they can help you find an internship at a studio, find an internship at a company that you might be interested in, and give you kind of a jumping off point for your career to build on your own. But you know these are the connections that will help you get started. And finally, you can do it. If you are interested in freelancing, you just got to do it. It can be a little bit scary. Uh, I was pretty unsure when I jumped feet first into freelancing right out of school. Well, I mean, I was freelancing while I was still in school, but you might have to work a lot of jobs, balance your schedules. You might be poor for a little bit until you get yourself situated with like a big client base, good relations at different companies. You might have to move, new city, different country, make some sacrifices, yada yada yada. Whole big you can do it speech, but everyone does. There are lots of people who freelance and live very successful lives, whether it is financially or personal goals, or just whatever success looks like for you. Just set your own goals, figure out what you want out of your career and your life, and then just do it. Make a Google sheet or like a Google Doc, put down some goals and just figure out a way to complete them. Um, yeah, but also everyone that works in audio knows the same struggle. We all bitch about it together, and that makes it fun. You know, shared struggles, and dealing with shitty clients or people that make your job really hard. Uh, you know, it's all worth it when you get to listen to the final product, see something that you're proud of, get to be a part of something a little bit bigger than yourself, or just shooting with some of your audio buddies about a client you both worked with that was a total pain, you know. And if you get to do a job that you like, that is a huge, huge luxury. You know, I never thought I would be able to teach and record in a studio and work with music and musicians for money. I count myself as super lucky every single day, and not very many people on this earth get to do a job that they like. So, if you're following your passion, uh, figure out what success looks like for you. You know, it's not that hard to make enough money to live very comfortably as a freelancer, and you can find a lot of success. You get to work with so many cool people. You get to be a part of lots of different projects, and it is certainly worth it. But yeah, this was basically a long TED talk on like you can do it kind of stuff. But yeah, I think just going over some of the different career paths that you have available to you, super important. Kind of just giving you an idea of what's out there, and use all of this stuff to just jump off and reach out to people, Google stuff, figure out what's important, what some of these tasks are, things that they do, watch videos, watch other people talk about the jobs that they do. Um, you know, what kind of cities and places around the country or the world that these are available. And yeah, just do your own research, especially with the money. make make good choices with your money when you make it, and plan for your futures no matter what you end up doing. The world's a crazy place now, so invest in yourself. But yeah, study for your final, do your interview, and I will see you guys next week. See ya.